we have something really good, a hot topic in the news this week. He's been charged with crime. This is a show where I try to educate real stories. Thank you for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King. We have another great informative show for you tonight. A lot of my clients ask me, what is a bail bond? What is a bail bond, Ms. King? Tell me what it is. When I miss court, aren't you supposed to tell me? Aren't you responsible for me to be in court? And I'm always trying to explain the concept of bail bonds, what a bail bond is, what the lawyer's responsibility is versus what the bail bondsman's responsibility is. And so I thought a good idea would be to have a real bail bond come on the show and educate us about bail bonds and the criminal justice system. So I have long-time, seasoned, veteran, experienced bail bondsman Cedric Claiborne in the studio tonight. He owns Greenspoint Bail Bond, and he is going to answer those questions. So get your questions ready. You know the number, 713-807-1794. It'll flash periodically, and I am going to ask him some of the common questions. And like I said, in about 15 to 20 minutes, call in with your questions and we'll try to answer them. We're not going to give you legal advice, but we'll answer general questions about bail bond. So, Cedric, thank you for coming.
Thank you for allowing me to be here.
And thank you for being willing to put yourself out there and doing your community service by educating people about bail bonds in the criminal justice system. So what is a bail bond?
Well, a bail bondsman is a guarantee, number one, that the defendant will make it to court. I put my name up just like a family member would, assuring that that defendant will get to court and do what they're supposed to do while they're on bond.
Okay. And how does that process work? My loved one is in jail. They've called me from the Harris County Jail saying, Mama, get me out of jail. I got a $20,000 bond. I know about you, Cedric, so I call you and I say, Cedric, I need to get my son out of jail. What do I have to do?
Well, number one, I like to be a little bit more, not so formal. Just call and ask for Big Said. Number one, okay, so if you call me, okay, Miss Vivian or Miss Dorothy or whoever the situation may be, it's a $20,000 bond and Kathy's in jail. She made a mistake or whatever. Generally, it's 10%. It's $2,000 to be able to make a bail.
A $20,000 bail.
A $20,000 bail, absolutely. So I don't have $2,000, Cedric. Well, with me, bring me $1,000 or bring me what you have. I'm willing to work with you to be able to get it done. You know, you owe me another $1,000, but you need to make sure that Kathy or whoever goes to that court date and do what they're supposed to do, like the judge insists that they do.
All right, so I'm the mama. I'm calling you on a Saturday night. My daughter got arrested after the club. She has a $20,000 bond. I told you that, you know, I don't have $2,000, but you said that you'll let me take $1,000 in a payment plan. So when I come there to your office, do I have to sign a contract or a promissory note to pay the whole $2,000? How does that work?
Well, actually, when you come into my office, you're going to sign both a contract and a promissory note. Not only $2,000, you're responsible for $20,000 if she doesn't go to court, if she decides to go with a boyfriend or get to Wild Hap or you know what, and decides to go to Louisiana or to wherever she decides to go, and I have to look for her, I can't find her within a year's time on a felony charge, then I'm responsible for the $20,000, and in turn, their promissory notes put you on the hook for the $20,000. So I come after you for the $20,000.
Even though you're responsible for paying for it?
Even though I'm responsible for paying for it, in turn, you're tied into it just as I am.
So the promissory note basically says what?
That you're responsible for little Kathy or little Susie going to court. If she doesn't go to court, you're totally responsible for not only the $20,000 plus court costs.
Okay. And when are the court costs determined if she fails to show up at court?
Well, if she fails to show up in court on a felony, we have as a bail bondsman 1 year to find that defendant and get them back into custody. With a misdemeanor, it's 9 months.
Okay.
Okay, so at that time, if I don't find them, the court cost is added to that.
Okay. So let's say that your company is all a cash company, and this is the way I explain it to my clients. And Cedric was explaining to me how he explains it. But when my clients ask me what a bond is, I tell them it's like a loan from a bank. So the bondsman is going to put 20,000 cash on deposit at the sheriff's department and charge you 10% interest, just like a bank would with a loan or a car loan. And you owe them that 2,000. But at some point, and as long as you show up, all your court dates until your case is resolved, then everything's good. You paid 10% to borrow his money. You're borrowing his 20,000 because you could have put up a cash bond for $20,000. So instead of calling Cedric, if look my daughter, little Kathy's in jail, I can go take $20,000 cash and take it to the Harris County Sheriff's Department at 49 San Jacinto and put it up cash, and they'll let her out. But if she doesn't show up, then I'm on the hook for that 20,000 I put up there. So when Cedric, the bonding company, does it, they take 20. He has money on deposit with the Harris County Sheriff's Department. Say it's 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, but that 20,000 is earmarked of his money. And so if you don't show up, they put a hold on his money. And so that's why he has that 1 year to look for you if you don't show up. So let's just say I co-sign. Some bonding companies ask for collateral.
Okay.
What do you do how do you handle collateral?
Well, a lot of times I will ask for collateral, but in this time and era, we just came out of a bad recession. So how many people really own their property that's willing to put up to get someone out of jail or whatever? So I'm putting my trust into you to make sure that your family member does what they're supposed to do. So sometimes I don't get collateral. A lot of times I don't, but I'm trusting in you just like I would trust a family member to do what you're supposed to do. So the biggest problem is when I tell my clients, please don't let me down, because you're not really hurting me. You're hurting the client that's coming in after you if you don't do what you're supposed to do.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So let's say I do have a rent house that I own, and I got to pay you the $2,000 plus put up my collateral, right? Like my little rent house.
Correct.
So what kind of documents do I have to fill out for that?
Well, pretty much what you would like to do is put up, well, what you have to do, let me rephrase that, is put up a deed of trust. And you would sign that over as a lien holder. I would be a lien holder on your property until that case is over with. Now, if Susie or Kathy or James or John or whoever defaults on that bond and I can't find them, then I would take over that property.
Okay.
Now, in essence, to say, for instance, that rent property was exceeding the price of that bond of $20,000, then we would sell that property. I would get the dividends that's owed to me back, and then the rest will be given to you. Correct.
Okay. Do you take co-signers on bonds?
Absolutely. A co-signer is a mandatory deal.
What does that mean? So if I'm trying to make a bond on little Kathy, her name is going to be on the bond, but I'll be what? How does my name?
Well, you're standing by, just like like you said before when we first opened. Like you would co-sign on a college kid coming out of school, no credit. Well, let me sign on to get my daughter a car, a truck, or my son a car, a truck. You know, he's did what he's supposed to do. He's been good so far. Why wouldn't I sign on my son to get a truck or a car?
Right.
Same thing.
Right. So that's what the co-signer is. Would you sometime ask for more than just me to co-sign on look?
Absolutely. Terms on the amount of the bail. It just depends on the situation. Sometimes you can kind of, I've been doing this for over 21 years now. So sometimes you try to use a better judgment and read a person. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. I make mistakes sometimes in judging character. So, but a lot of times, they seem like a good family. Let me trust this person. It may be a $100,000 bond. Well, it seems like she has her son under control or whatever, and he's going to do. Let me trust Miss Dorothy on doing what Lou James is going to do. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So
I got you. So that's the co-signer, that's the collateral, and the property. Now, let's say it's little Kathy's court date. Oh, okay. Now, little Kathy, we make her bond. I bring you the money, sign the contract. Let's talk about that separate contract other than the promissory note.
Okay.
I bring you half of what I owe you. So then what does the contract say?
Well, the contract is that whatever we agree to pay, it doesn't have to be 10%. Okay. Just say hypothetical, I say on a $20,000 bond, this young lady's missed court before. She's a high risk. You're not that great of a co-signer. Opposed to a $20,000 bond, you're paying $2,000. I may say, give me $4,000. Okay, So at the end of the day, just say she goes to court or whatever, the judge say, well, let me dismiss this case. Well, you signed this contract, you're still on the hook for $4,000.
And let me just tell you this. I know clients want their money back when they do that, because clients will ask me, like, if I'm a pretty good lawyer, so when I get people's cases dismissed, they'll say, well, Miss King, can I go ask my bail bond for the money back? I tell them, absolutely not.
Right.
It's not my business. I've never seen the contract that you signed with them, because when you hired me, you were already on bond. You'd already picked your bonding company. But that's when I go into the scenario that you borrowed the money and you paid them that money. You signed a contract to pay it, and they still had to put their money up for collateral for the time your case was outstanding. So no, why would they give it back to you? Is a bank gonna give you the interest back? On a car loan if you pay it off early? No.
No, but I mean, just when you're not educated about what's going on, sometimes you just don't know, and there's nothing wrong with asking.
So when they ask you for your money back, what do you tell them?
Well, of course not, because I put up a substantial amount of money to be able to get your loved one out of jail, and I think you're being totally modest. I think you're a great attorney, so don't sell yourself short.
All right. Well, I am modest.
Okay.
But all right. So they sometimes ask for their money back,
Okay.
and their great attorneys get their cases dismissed, and you have to explain to them that has nothing to do with the other, basically.
Absolutely.
Do they really get mad at you about it?
Well, absolutely, and here's the problem you get where I've been kind enough to put you on a payment plan. Well, I'm not going to pay the rest of your money. Screw me. Now it's time for me to be able to take legal action, because there's so many different phases of a bonding company where people don't understand. A lot of people will come in, well, I paid you X amount of dollars when someone misses court. Okay, I have court costs that has to be paid or whatever, and that's out of my pocket. And it's so one-sided because you're not educated on the total business aspect of a bonding company. The problem that in the bonding industry now is that it's becoming so saturated because you have so many people that come in and say, well, someone just laid $300 on the line and you didn't do this and you didn't do that. Well, you're just only looking at one part of the cake being cooked. You're not looking at the whole deal till the cake is done. So, you have to look at it from that aspect of it, and a lot of people don't. So that's why you see so many bonding companies come in and out, and it kind of hurts the business from a standpoint, because you're telling people to come in and pay cheap prices and do this and do that because you want that quick buck, but you're not looking in the total well-being of the industry. You're just looking at the quick dollar for yourself at that time.
Talk to us about that. Now, when would you have to pay court costs then? They've paid you the money. That's supposed to be your profit.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you do have to pay court costs on your clients. And tell me what situations those are.
Well, here's the deal. What people don't understand is you get a lot of clients that get upset with the bonding company or whatever, and complain to great attorneys or modest attorneys or however you want to call it, is that, well, they're calling me and asking me that I have to pay $300 or $400. Well, why? Well, John showed up to court 10 minutes late, and judge whoever decided, okay, we're going to forfeit their bail. Now, well, the bond was forfeited, true enough, but John got 10 days in jail, or Susie got 5 days in jail, or the judge dismissed their case. Well, he forfeited that bail. He didn't do a revocation on it. He forfeited that bail. So at the end of the day, the bonding company has to pay court costs.
So who bills you for the court costs?
Harris County.
So they'll bill you for the court costs and tell you the bond number and who the client is
Case
for.
number, the whole nine.
So about how many of those do you have to pay a month?
Too many. Too many.
Oh, my
Too
God.
many. Here's my biggest deal. Now, once a person gets probation, once a person case is over with, just not say dismissed, not exonerated on that case, just say they get probation or deferred or whatever, or even they get 30 days in jail. At the end of the day, once they get that paperwork, it's legal fees that had to be paid. They have to pay back the probation fees. And my biggest argument is, why not add a bondsman court cost to that? You're making them pay everything else. Why not defend us and add that to it?
Right.
And I think we get lost in the shuffle as where we're a median between that. That's why you get so much pretrial stuff into it and all that other kind of.
Well, let's talk about let's break it down before we talk about pretrial. So, but just give me an example of, okay, so like you'd have to pay a court cost. Okay, I've paid you $2,000 for little Kathy's $20,000 bond.
Okay.
But on her second court date, she got there 15 minutes late.
Okay.
And so when the judge called the docket at 9 o'clock, she wasn't there.
Okay.
And okay, this little Kathy, no answer. The prosecutor moves for bond forfeiture. The judge grants it. Little Kathy walks in at 9:15 and runs up to the bailiff and says, "I'm sorry, I'm late, I'm late, I'm late." How does that affect your business and your bond?
Well, I mean, it absolutely destroys us because everything is on what the judge decides.
So
Sometimes
if your bond stays forfeited, say
well,
like if the judge says it stays forfeited, do you still have to pay court costs?
if my bond, excuse me, my bail is forfeited at that time, I'm in the red at that point
Right.
because right now is look at it from this aspect.
Okay.
I'm kind enough to put, just say it's a $5,000 bond. I'm kind enough to let you pay $250 down.
Okay.
You owe me $250 more. You hadn't paid me my money yet because we're waiting on the first of the month or whatever the scenario may be. Little Susie goes to court late. Judge forfeits bail. He keeps her or whatever the scenario may be. Well, okay, the bail is forfeited. You still owe me $250 plus I got the court costs coming from Harris County. Now who's up now?
Right. You're losing.
I'm losing all around the board.
And you're paying the court costs simply because she was late to court.
Absolutely.
Even though they have her body there late and she goes to jail.
Absolutely.
So when the judge takes her to jail because he forfeits her bond and then doubles the bond and makes it $10,000, what do you do if that client comes right back to you?
Well, me being Big Said, the nice, big, gentle guy, Miss Dorothy, well, she didn't mean to do it. Come on, Miss Dorothy, come on. I'm going to go ahead and work with you again. So from the aspect of not only as being a business man, you have to be a community man and willing to help people because it's not all about you because number one, Greenspoint Bail Bond is a Christian-based bonding company first. So we try to take care of our brothers and sisters and do what we have to do to be able to help our community.
Okay. So you'll try to work with them even though they get their bond revoked and the judge doubles it and they still haven't paid you for the first bond.
Come
So
see me.
you still are going to try to work
see
with
me.
them.
Come
Okay.
see me.
All right.
We've all been young before. We all make mistakes. Let's try it again.
Okay. Now, okay, let's say that little Susie, I made her $20,000 bond. She gets out of jail the next day. Does she have to come see you right away, or how does that work? Since I signed the bond.
She needs to come see me before she go home and bathe. Let's have a conversation about what happened, what's going on, and sometimes it's remarkable when you get a chance to talk to people because the first thing that on the outlook of people is that they're just a bad person. No, it's not a bad person. It's just someone that made a bad decision at that time.
Right.
Because we all go through things in life, and you never know when you go snap or what's going to happen.
Right.
So you have to look at it from all around the board.
So when she comes to see you before she goes home and bathes, do you take a picture of her so you know what she looks like to keep up with her? How do you track her?
We really would like to take a picture and get much information.
Because you only got the information from me.
Well,
I'm trying to get it from her.
I'm trying to get much as information about her as I can and let her know that at the end of the day that it's going to be okay. And by being in the bonding industry so long, you try to educate what's going to happen with your case. What should you do? How should you do it, or whatever, the best that you can, because you don't want to tell anybody because everybody's scared. I made a bad decision, and at the end of the day, when I come, I'm scared, I'm nervous. I didn't mean to do that.
Okay, we got a question. Caller, thank you for calling Truth and Justice with Vivian King. Please ask your question.
Vivian, hi.
Hey.
Big Said, hi. My question is simple, I hope. It's, is there a bond price set for different crimes? And I'm going to listen to you on the television, if you don't
Okay, let me answer that, okay? I was a prosecutor once upon a time, from 90 to 92 or 3, I can't even remember now. 92 to 95. Okay, that was the year, excuse me. And all the prosecutors' offices open 24 hours a day, and the ones that are there, there's always a police desk. So if a police officer arrests you and the DA accepts charges, there is a bond schedule. So yes, there's a set price for bond that the Harris County judges have voted on. So say, for example, my daughter, little Kathy, has her first offense. It's a felony. It's a second-degree felony. It's going to be $20,000. If it's a state jail felony, it's going to be $2,000. If it's a third-degree felony, and correct me if I'm wrong, say it, because sometimes I forget, $5,000. So it just kind of goes up in increments. If they've had 2 in priors, then it's another schedule. So it's a specific schedule for each crime. For years, murder was just, what, $30,000? It was just a $30,000 bond, but now it's like $50,000. It's gone up to $50,000. But for many, I mean, up until just like a couple of years ago, my first 20 years of my career, it was just $30,000 for a murder if you had no priors. Now, once you get into having priors, the schedule goes way up. And misdemeanors are specific too, but they're just cheaper. And remember, a misdemeanor means the punishment is Harris County Jail, no more than 1 year. And when we say felony, that means you're going to prison. And so those bonds are higher. But yes, there's a set schedule. So in the DA's office and the clerk's office that are working the police desk, when those charges come in and the officers email them through a system that they have, the clerk puts a specific bond on there. That goes into the Harris County Justice Information Management System. And it's online for everybody to see, and most bondsmen are online with the clerk's office, so they see how much the bond is. So when I call Cedric and I say, my daughter's in jail, this is her name and date of birth, if she's already been transferred to Harris County and has charges, then what do you do, Sid?
I just got kind of caught up in what,
Okay,
you know, what you're saying.
what Sid does is, if I call and say my daughter's in jail, you ask me for her name and date of birth, you're going to go on Harris County online.
Well, absolutely. What immediately would happen, we're going to go to Chris Daniels on the website. If not, it's a number that we can call to try to get the information that we can get it right back to you immediately to be able to try to help you get your loved one out of jail.
And that's going to be the SPIN number that Harris County has assigned, the case number, and that goes on the actual bond document, and the court number, and he has to type that on his bond form that we sign, that the loved one or whatever signs, and that's the actual physical bond that said or his runner or his employee or sometimes the mother, they'll make us maybe sign the form, but we have to take that physical bond paper with an assigned number, and these bond forms come from Harris County. Okay, so said will have his runner take, and it's a multi-part form, 249 San Jacinto, that's the Harris County bond office, and actually post that bond, and then they process it in the computer. Am I saying it pretty good?
That is correct.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
May I ask one more question, please?
Absolutely.
Now, recently there was a person that killed several of his family members. Does the bond multiply every time a person commits an incident?
Okay, let me tell you when there's no bond. If it's a capital murder, no bond. Okay, so so two people getting killed is no bond, because a capital murder is defined generally by 2 first-degree felonies where you're facing 5 years to 99, and one of those first-degree felonies has to be a murder. So if someone is raped and murdered, that's a capital murder. If it's a child under 10, it used to be under 6 years old, but I think it's 10 now, that's a capital murder. If you kill a police officer, that's a capital murder. So our statute in the Penal Code 1902, it defines what all the ways you can commit a capital murder. But the general rule for you to know is 2 first-degree murders. So 2 people getting killed, because 1 is a first-degree felony. So with 2, that's a capital murder. And on the bond schedule, it has no bond. So that means that that's when the media knows about it, because the media is online with our district clerk too. So when Cedric said Chris Daniels is our elected district clerk that keeps all of the records, okay? So that's where all this information is getting put into, the bond amount, all this information we're talking about, and the court date and all of that. And so the media knows about it too. So then those people are shackled into court the next day for the news because they don't have a bond. So they're going to come out before the judge, and the judge is going to read the probable cause and then appoint them a lawyer if they don't have one already. And then the judge Harris County has decided the judges are going to make that bond, decide what that bond is, okay, if they're going to get a bond at all. So it might be $1 million or no bond. Let me give you one other scenario in which there doesn't have to be a bond issued. If I've been to prison 2 times before, and the third felony is I'm considered an habitual criminal, my range of punishment is 25 to life. And it doesn't have to be first-degree felonies. I could have gone the first time on a third-degree felony 2 to 10 by breaking into somebody's house. I could have gone the second time to prison for drugs. But the third time, no matter what it is, even if it's a small felony, if it's a first, second, or third-degree felony, put it that way, and it's my third offense, my range of punishment, that is 25 to life. On those cases, if the DA, it's in our Texas Constitution, if the DA files a high bond or no bond request within 7 days of me getting charges filed, there doesn't have to be a bond issued for 60 days. Those are one of the ones that there's a lot of questions on. When people start calling lawyers, they'll say, well, this lawyer said they can get my child a bond. And then I'll look on the same website that the bondsman look on, Chris Daniels' website, because I'm an experienced lawyer. And lawyers who are watching this have just learned that, because most of them don't know why people that are habituals don't have bonds, but it's in our Texas Constitution that society has a right, if you've been to prison before twice, to kind of cool down. Let your neighborhood cool down, because you're a terror. So we're going to wait 60 days before we're going to let you out again, whether you're guilty or not. You just been so bad that we're going to let the society cool down for a minute. And so 60 days after that, then your lawyer can go in and ask for a bond. That one the judge decides.
You're excellent. You are an excellent, excellent host. Thank you so much for that information.
Okay, thank you. You're welcome.
Bye now.
Bye-bye. Call in anytime. So we were talking about bond forfeitures.
Okay.
So now let's try to distinguish bond revocation.
Okay. What happens is you get a lot of clients that are called and said, well, you guys got off our bond or whatever. I was like, man, well, you guys were in good standards with me. We didn't surrender. We didn't surrender your bail. And let's get it straight. When we get off your bond as a bonding company, it's called a bond surrender.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's stop right there. I didn't pay you no more. I signed a contract that I was going to get my daughter out of jail. I brought you 1,000 of the 2,000. I'm supposed to pay you in 2 weeks. I'll never pay you.
Okay.
And it's now 2 months later. What are you going to do?
Well, I would like to surrender your bail because, that's not the agreement that we made. But a lot of times, well, majority of the time, a judge doesn't think that's a reasonable or reason to surrender a bail. So judge is like, well, that's something that you agreed to do. Are they signing in with you? They're checking in with you? Are they visible? Are they flight risk? Well, I'm not going to surrender that bail.
Okay, well, let's say this. Little Susie's supposed to report to you once a week. That's your office procedure.
Okay.
You make someone's bond every Wednesday,
Okay.
right? So little Susie hadn't been there in 30 days. You don't know where little Susie is because little Susie has not come every week, every Wednesday to sign in to show you're still around. So what do you do then?
Well, at that point, little Susie becomes what you call a flight risk. Miss Dorothy don't know where she is. I don't know where she is. So at that time, I can go to the judge in whatever courtroom and says, listen, I hadn't heard from her in this time or whatever. Everyone thinks she's going to run. But now...
I don't know where she is.
I don't know where she is. Now, that's a reason I can present to the judge she's a flight risk. She may not go to court.
And that's a reason the judge could approve a bond surrender.
Right.
And at that point, that lets you off the bond.
No.
So what happens with the bond?
I'm off the bond per se, but hypothetically, if that person still doesn't go to court, just say August the 10th, I surrendered the bail today, and Susan said, I heard I got a warrant out there, bondsman surrender my bail.
See, this is the part I want the audience to understand. When you surrendered the bond, though, and a warrant was issued.
A warrant is issued.
That's the part we didn't say. I want the people listening to say, if you surrender that bond because she didn't show up for a month, missed 4 times coming to your office, even though it's not her court date, you can go in on a date that's not her court date and say, look, Judge, she violated the agreement that we had on a document, in a form. If the judge approves it, then it goes into the system as bond surrender, and a warrant is issued for that person's arrest. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
However, that doesn't remove me off the hook of little Susie's bond.
Right.
Because what happens is, if just say she goes to court, I surrender today, which is July 17th?
16th,
16th, 17th. Okay, and she has a court on August 10th. She doesn't appear on that court date. Although I've surrendered that bail, I'm still responsible for her.
Okay. And so you still are supposed to go out and find her. That's when we hear the term bounty hunters.
There you are.
Tell us about a bounty hunter.
A bounty hunter.
Let me make sure. Do I have a call holding? Okay.
Okay, a bounty hunter is in essence, a licensed investigator that is contracted through a bonding company to be able to go pick up people that has skipped bail or has missed a court date. However, in my company, I not only write bonds, by me being the surety on the bond, I have a license to be able to go pick your what up. So if someone misses court with my bond, if you're at home, I'm coming to get you.
Because you have the license to also go get people.
Absolutely.
All right. So because you have that 1 year on that felony to surrender that person who didn't show up for court.
Right.
And so you're going to try to get them and turn them in like you the police.
Not like the police. I mean, we have other tactics. I mean, and no one wants to do that.
Okay, well, we're not going to tell people your taxes because you might have to use it.
Exactly.
Listening. Do I have another phone call? Caller, you're on. Ask your question, please. Hello? Are you there? Guess they hung up. All righty, let's go to a bond. We talked about bond revocation. So sometimes judges add conditions to people's bonds. So you've made little Susie's bond for me. She's not supposed to go to court till next Friday. When she goes to court, then the judge might call her up on her first court date and say, oh, I see that you're out on bond with Greenspoint Bail Bond, but I'm still going to make you come, and I'm going to have pretrial supervision and have you come do random urinalysis.
Right, there we go. Now, well, let's go back to what's, we said what a bond surrender. Let's go back to what a bail revocation is, because what happens is, the difference is, okay, well, the judge revoked little Susie's bond. Well, like you were getting into, well, she asked you, the judge said you got to take a urinalysis test or go to the third floor to do this, do that, whatever she asked you to do, that's part of the agreement of you being out on bond.
Right.
Okay, you didn't do any of that. Well, the judge, well, she didn't do that. Well, I'm going to revoke the bail.
Or she did do it and she was dirty.
Or she did do it and smoked some marijuana, or was hanging around with somebody that did this or did that, and you were dirty. Well, the judge, well, I'm not going to forfeit this bail. I'm going to revoke it, which is fine by me, the bail bondsman, because it gets me off the hook because you revoked the bail. Okay, once the bond is revoked, that's a totally different scenario than the bail being surrendered.
Okay.
So when the judge revoked the bond, that's really a personal deal between you and that judge. The judge, okay, you didn't do what I told you to do. Not only what the bondsman told you to do, but what I told you to do. So I'm going to revoke your bail.
And so do clients ever come and fuss at you about the judge revoking their bond because they didn't know that the judge was going to add these conditions to their bond?
Well, not from that, per se, from that aspect of it. But what happens is Kathy goes to court and finds out, okay, it's a warrant because the judge revoked, not surrendered the bail. The judge revoked the bond. Well, what's the difference? Well, my lawyer say y'all got off our bond because you got a lot of young attorneys that don't understand the language of it. Well, the bondsman got, well, I didn't get off the bond. The judge did a revocation on it.
Because of something you did with the court.
Exactly.
Let's see if we have a call. Caller, you have a caller on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you for calling Truth and Justice with Vivian King. Please state your question.
Okay, how you doing, Miss King? You looking very nice tonight.
Hey, Tracy.
Hey, what's up, Big Sid?
What's going on?
I got a question for Big Sid there. Okay, supposing somebody jump bail on you, and then you got to send a bond on something after, or you got to try to find it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What if the fees and expenses exceed, the cost of the bond, the original bond itself?
So I guess what you're asking, Tracy, is if I was supposed to pay him $2,000 on my daughter's $20,000 bond, and he ended up spending $3,000 on trying to get me back, what happens? Is that your question?
Yes, pretty much so.
Whereas if a bail is $2,000, it would be ludicrous for me to be able to spend more money than it is to get that person back into custody.
But what if you have to with the court costs and fees?
At that point it becomes a business decision because if it's a $2,000 bond.
No, we're talking about the $20,000 where I paid you.
Oh, if it's $20,000.
Yes, $20,000, but I paid you $2,000.
Okay.
But you got to spend the money to try to get my daughter in because she didn't come to court.
Well, I'm not going to spend over $20,000 to do it, but hypothetically, if it costs me $10,000 to get them back in custody, I'm still better than paying $20,000. So you have to look at it from that perspective.
Well, I was talking about the $20,000 that you put up, the whole bond itself, and then suppose somebody flee to another country or something. That could be pretty expensive.
Well, let's look at it from that point. That's when the business that I'm in becomes very, very tough. And, $20,000, well, guess what? Big Sid got to try to find it.
Right, and this is the deal. That's why he was saying earlier, if you were tuned in, that it's a lot of bonding companies that start and a lot of them that fold because sometimes their expenses become more than their income. Mm-hmm. They can't make ends meet because if you already spend the money you make this month and then 6 months later your client doesn't show up, then you got to come back and find that money because you already spent your profits for this month. So you got to keep some money in reserve.
Absolutely.
Okay, I think that's all I have for tonight. But thanks for taking my call and thanks for coming on and giving us the information.
Cool. So we talked about also judges adding conditions. And do you, in your business, is it legal for you to refer lawyers to people?
No.
Okay.
No, we totally cannot do that. I mean, it would be great to be able to do that, but we cannot do that as bail bondsmen.
It's one of the rules.
Now, an attorney can refer to me all day or whatever. We can't exchange funds or that. But an attorney can refer to a bondsman all day, but you, as a bondsman, you cannot refer clients to an attorney.
Okay. And also, listeners, I want you to know that bail bonds are first legislated by Austin. Okay, so you can Google Texas Government Code and find bail bond rules. Okay, so every county can administer those rules the way they want to, but the rules are set in Austin. Okay, and then Harris County has a bail bond board that executes those rules from Austin. And one of the rules from Austin, like when I first left the DA's office in '95. I used to do attorney bonds, which is different, and I'm not really going to explain that right now. But if I wanted to open a bonding company, I had to have, I believe it was either 50,000 cash or 100,000 cash, or the equivalent of property to open a bail bond company. I never did that. I'd do attorney bonds. When you do an attorney bond, I would put up my money, but it means that I'm going to not only bond them out, but I also are representing them. Okay, so and I had to have $10,000 or $20,000 on deposit with the county to make those bonds. So now, though, the rules, I was looking into it a couple of years ago because I was like, man, I'm tired of just being a criminal lawyer. A lot of lawyers own bonding companies. I need to own me a bonding company because by the time they come to me, they so broke, they don't have money to hire me, and they still on a payment plan with their bonding company.
Yeah, right.
And so if they got, they got aggravated robbery or they got some kind of serious case, they're paying a $30,000 or $40,000 bond, and they're paying payments. How are they gonna hire a lawyer to come? So then they've given. Say like on my daughter's case, it's $20,000 bond. I gave him $1,000. I still owe him $1,000, and then the lawyer then might be charging you hypothetically $5,000, and you don't have nothing left. So you might say, "Oh, I got $250. I'll pay you later because I got to pay the bondsman." But the lawyer's the one that has to go to court. So we get shortchanged so much because one realization I came to is back in the old days, more than 20 years ago, 25 years ago, people didn't get in trouble as much. A family, maybe once or twice in a lifetime, somebody got in trouble. So people could pool their resources together as a family to make a bond and pay decent money for a lawyer because everybody's going to chip in. But now you have whole family members that stay in trouble. So the funds are exhausted. I mean, you might have 5 people in the family been in trouble, and people just not going to pay anymore. And they're poor families. They're not families that are homeowners. They're apartment livers or Section 8 people. And if every child gets in trouble, they're not going to have the money like other people will have. Right. So I was going to try to open a bonding company or do it with some other people. Well, first of all, it has to be a single owner. And now the rules say, they've been changed and amended, that say that you have to work in a bonding company for 30 hours for at least a year within the last 2 years as one of the qualifications to own a bonding company. So see what I believe Bondsman did to lobby Austin, our legislators, to change the law. So now to own it, you basically had to be a little clerk making $9 or $10 an hour, because who else is going to work 30? I'm not going to go work 30 hours a week for a year at a bonding company. When would I have time to do that? To get the qualifications. So that's basically saying the only people that have the qualifications now are hourly workers that said would hire. And so really, you can't open a bonding company anymore.
Well, let's reverse that a little bit.
Am I true? Is that true? Is that the rules?
Well, it is, but from a certain aspect, let's look at it like from this.
I'm not saying it's not fair. I'm just saying because people ask me, what do I need to do to open a bonding company? Right. When they say, well, how am I going to have a job and go work somebody 30 hours a week for a year and still, and how much is a bonding company going to pay me? I'm like, I don't know. I don't think they pay that much because, they have to be open 24 hours a day and they have to make profit. So they're really not probably paying that much.
Well, here's my rebuttal to that. How do you become a great basketball player? How do you become a great football player? If it's something that you dream of, you're willing to make that sacrifice to be able to get it done. And what happens is, I'm very grateful for the laws that they made in Austin, because what happens is it doesn't saturate our business from bad bondsmen that come in, from people that don't understand the business, or people that have bad intentions coming into the business. So, I like that as a defense mechanism for our business.
And I can appreciate that. I mean, I understand you'd like the cover, but that wasn't the rules when you opened your bonding company, was it?
Pretty much. I mean, at the time it wasn't, but as you said.
And I'm not mad about it, but I'm just saying that was not the rule.
Yeah, but as you stated earlier, it's a different time that we're in.
Right.
It's a different group of people that we deal with now. As you see, as an attorney, it's a different kind of client base that you have come in. or whatever. And because it's amazing to me when I have young kids come to my office that are born in 96, 97 or whatever, and when you try to have a conversation with them about it, is that they think that's the way to live. And my defense as a bail bondsman is when I see these young kids, because when I look at it as it being in my community in Greenspoint,
Right.
okay, my deal is that I have kids in that community.
Let's stop and take a question.
Sure.
Hold that thought. Caller, thank you for calling Truth and Justice with Vivian King. Ask your question, please.
Yes, good evening.
Good
You
evening.
look nice today, Vivian.
Thank you.
My question is, a friend of mine, she went and bonded her son out last night, okay?
Let's ask a hypothetical question. Now, we don't want a specific question, okay? So
I'm not going to give no
hypothetically.
names. Yeah, okay,
Okay.
Hypothetical. I'm not going to give no names, so nobody don't know her. And
Okay.
she ain't
Because we can't really give legal advice, but if you give a hypothetical, we can give a hypothetical answer.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Well, then it's not I just want to know if this is possible.
Okay.
She said it was for $500, okay? She said that they set the bond at $500. Could she said she paid $140. Is that possible for her to just pay $140? Or does she have to go to a bail bondsman, and it's usually like 10% of him?
Right. If the bond by the court was set at $500, she could have gone and paid the $500 to the sheriff's department to let her child go, and that's a cash bond. You're your own bondsman. Or you can pay a bondsman to to bond the person out yourself. So somebody got to put $500 up at the sheriff's department in this hypothetical, or $20,000 in the hypothetical I've been using all night. Or the bondsman can do it, and the bondsman's charging you interest on the full amount of the bond.
Well, here's the tricky question that you asked. You said, could she have paid $50? No. People get the misconception that all bonds are 10%, and that's not the case.
Yeah, that's just kind of an industry standard. They can charge whatever they want to charge.
Well, I mean, not even that. I mean, just think about it. I mean, most bondsmen, anytime a bond is set from $5,000 and up, is usually when the 10% kicks in. Under that, it's usually from 15% or more. It just depends. So $50 is not the case. No one in Harris County is going to charge you $50 for a $500
Yeah, it
bond.
wouldn't be worth it because somebody's got to drive down to the
someone has to do all that.
and put paperwork, pay an employee. So nobody's going to charge you $50 on a $500 bond because of the work that's going to be done. They got to do the paperwork, do the contract, come down to the sheriff's department and wait in line to post a bond.
Right.
And it might be 2 in the morning because that sheriff's department is open 24 hours a day.
Right.
So no, it's not going to be cost effective as a businessman for him to charge just 10% of a $500 bond. But when you start getting into $5,000, $10,000, 10% is enough to pay an employee to do that and make a profit. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, because it was at 3 o'clock and she paid $140.
Right.
Right, but she could have paid $500 herself and gone her own self down to 49 San Jacinto and waited in line at 4 in the morning and got them out. So she paid somebody else to do what she didn't do.
Right.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good enough?
That's good enough. All right, so you're talking about your community and young kids who...
Right. And here's my deal about it is, I love my business, absolutely. But my challenge is like, in my community and every community is the chain has to stop at home. Really. Okay. And so many times it's so funny. It's not funny. It's sad, to be honest with you, that I've done a bond for the mama and she's stealing or she's a thief or whatever. And then what happens is my daughters are stealing and my cousins and my nieces. And it's just a whole trend of the same mindset all the time. But us, especially as being minorities, when are we going to stop? And that's not the way you're supposed to do it. It's not okay to be able to act silly and have the mindset to be able to do foolish things. Because if you look in every other race, okay, Jewish or whatever, most Jewish people you look at, he's a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, okay? All of them are doctor. Might not be the best doctor, but he's a doctor, a lawyer, whatever the scenario may be.
So they carry on the family professionalism, and a lot of times what we're frustrated with in our community, in the black community, is that sometimes you're seeing with bail bonds a community carrying on crime.
Right.
The mother's a criminal, the daddy's a criminal,
right,
and every child's a criminal,
right,
and they juveniles and they adults, they become criminals.
And it carries on, but who's going to break the chain?
Who's going to break the chain?
Who's going to break the chain? And, as a businessman, is it okay for me to be able to do well off of it? That's fine and dandy. But do I really want to see my people acting that way or conducting themselves in that manner? No, no, because we come such a long way. Why do you want to continue embarrassing your whole family like that? I can remember what my aunt used to say all the time: when you walk out this house, you carrying a name with you.
Right.
And in a new era, kids just forget about that. You know what I mean? It's just like, I'm going to do what I want to do. We get caught on social media. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. My friends smoke marijuana, I'm going to smoke marijuana. Why? Why? You don't even know what it's supposed to feel like to be able to do. You're not even old enough to understand that.
Right.
But you're doing it anyway.
And what's frustrating is they're not thinking about the consequences. I mean, do you have the money to post bond? Do you
Nope.
have the money to hire a lawyer?
Nope.
Do you have money to investigate the facts of a case? If it's a little case, if it's a big case like aggravated robbery, and you might not be robbing, but you're hanging around the people that's robbing. So when they
Exactly.
get caught that night, they're arresting everybody.
Right.
You can sort that out later.
Right.
Can you afford that? Can you really afford
Yeah, you have
to
to
pay for the first aggravated robbery? The bond's going to be at least $30,000. So that's at least $3,000 you got to come up with for a bondsman. A lawyer's going to charge you at least $7,500. So you got to try to come up with that. If you're innocent and you want to, well, you need an investigator because it usually happened at night. There's some witnesses that maybe the police didn't see because the police don't come until after the crime is over.
Exactly.
And so you need to try to find, if you didn't do it, people to prove where you were, if you were at work, try to get check stubs. You have to try to find out who else was with little Johnny that night, go on their Facebook. You got to investigate a case to defend it. That all costs money. Is that really worth it?
Yeah, I mean,
You can't afford it.
and I hate to sound this way, and it may be bad, but, my son lives with me. And
How old is
even
he?
with my son and my daughter, I look like,
Are they under 18?
yes. So my deal is like, get a scholarship. I don't care what is in. If you play sports, my daughter plays volleyball, my son plays football. Look, I don't care what college. Go. Number one, get out of Houston. Go see something different.
Right.
Go meet some other children that live in Philadelphia and say, Dad, well, I'm going to Jane House for Thanksgiving this, and we go come to 4th of July down here. I'm fine with that. Go see something else or whatever. If you don't play sports and you hanging around you can't come to my house. Or if you're not getting good grades, or you're not playing sports, you can't come over my house.
You mean your children's friends can't come over?
Then you can't come over, because my deal is, if you
So before your children bring friends over, you ask them, what do they do?
what
at
do you
school?
do?
Right.
Or what your grades look like? You play volleyball, man? You play basketball? You play football? No, sir. You go on back around there.
You tell them to leave.
You got too much idle time on your hand.
Right.
Idle time brings problems.
That's true. So when you have repeat clients and they tell you, you see families, what kind of lectures do you give them?
Well, the thing about it is like, it's just like in any other race. You get a lot of single mothers come in. Well, Big said, could you please be able to talk to my son or talk to and I'm not saying that I'm a perfect man or whatever, but I've had challenges in life, so I understand where this young guy is coming from, not having a father, not having this. Man, come on back here. Why you do that, man?
Right.
And what women understand is that you're not breaking it down and talk. You yelling and screaming at them, but you're not really talking to them. And that's when I get those young guys, man. Why you not, man? You a big dude, man. Why you ain't playing ball? Why you ain't doing this, man? Don't you see all that money LeBron I'm getting? I ain't saying you got to be LeBron. Just be a portion of what he get. Just rebound and elbow. You get you some money.
Right. You
Or
at
do
least
that.
get a scholarship.
Yeah, and what happens is, what people don't understand is, you have changed the whole generation of the rest of your family. The first half of my generation, well, grandma smoked crack, this, that. Okay, that was that half. Now I pick up from here. Now my second half of the Joneses, we go do this.
Right.
And, so
Right.
when we get that mindset, it changes everything.
Well, have you seen that your inspirational talks have helped some of these children?
I try to do the best that I can, and some of them, it really has.
I mean, do some of them come back to you and say, Big said, thank you for talking to me like
I
a
appreciate
daddy.
you talking to them, because any kid that come around me with my kids, and my son get mad at me and my daughter get mad, Daddy, you too real. No, I'm not. I'm telling you how it is. How it is. I tell my daughter, that dude don't want, but this, that, and why you want to deal with him?
Right.
Get you a dude that got an education that's going to be somebody. Y'all put something together, and then when y'all have children, y'all got a foundation that's going to be positive.
Right.
Well, why you want to get a dude with tattoos all over his face and all? Where he going to go work at?
Right. Right. For you, Daddy. For you.
No, he can't work for me.
He can't work for you with tattoos
No,
on his face?
no, you can't go work anywhere else and get it. Why you going to come work for me?
Let me ask you this. When you're considering hiring people, do you hire ex-cons?
We cannot. I would love to. I would love to. And my biggest thing is I'm trying at this point to work. I was just telling a friend of mine the other day that I said I got to do something better for my community. I love sports. And so I said what I was going to do, I was going to come up with an AAU basketball team. And all the parents laugh at me all the time. I said we're going to come up with the Greenspoint Bail Bond Running Rebels. That's what we're going to be because we got the best athletes in Houston. People can get mad when they see the show, but we do.
You mean on the north side?
On the north side, south side, we got the best athletes. So I'm like, I'm gonna get an AAU team from the 3rd grade all the way to 18, and that's something I like to do. And I want to see all my guys get scholarship. It doesn't have to be to Texas. It doesn't have to be A&M. It can be to TSU. It can be wherever. But give them an opportunity to be able to get an education, because if you take the time and go into some of these areas, mom's on crack. Mom's doing this. My dad ain't been around, or my dad doing it. My dad think he just as cool as I am, or whatever. So how do I have an opportunity to do anything? I don't know any better.
Right, and I just wish there was more after-school programs or things for kids to do so they'd have a choice. You know, if they're gonna be bad, be bad. But if they had, like you said, AAU and other things to do, then you know, they'd have an option, because some kids would like to sweat out and have a good time and have that male camaraderie that way, playing sports, versus jumping in a gang for some camaraderie on robbing and stealing from people. Some people would choose the sports because they love it.
Absolutely.
But we just don't have the funding on the after-school program, because you know it
well,
can
the
be
thing about it
time-consuming.
is we have the funding. It just depends on what the community wants to spend their money in. We can go buy beer, we can go buy cigarettes, but why not invest in these children? And the thing is, when my kids, my kids' friends come over, one thing I can tell you is they go get a hot meal when they come to my house or whatever. And there may be 10 of them over there. They get on my nerve after a while. Y'all got to go home. But when we're there, look, man, I'm going to talk to you like this. I'm going to explain to the parents, you go do this, do that, and whatever. Now, if you can't if you're not going to allow me to talk to your kid, you take them on home with you.
Right.
But, I mean, I'm just a real firm believer in that. Man, you have to give these kids an opportunity to be able to succeed. Every other race does it. Jews, everybody does that, and they stick together. Well, you don't have a choice. I got Jewish friends that my dad was a doctor. I'm like, this dude ain't even that smart. You know what I mean?
But it's a legacy that they're proud of, and they do, and we can learn something from that. I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah,
right?
but when do we as a black race decide that we're going to create a legacy?
Right.
And
I know all we can do is, and we're just one person. It's hard to get people together with you to do it. I mean, one of the things, as you know, I do is create the show. I mean,
exactly. And
nobody ain't paying for it, but
you're doing a wonderful job.
And I'm doing it to try to at least educate people. So if I put them on YouTube, you know, parents can show this to their teenagers. They can answer some of these tough questions. I've had shows that are, you know, why do kids rob? I had one of my clients that was a robber, jacker, ag robber. Before he went to prison, he came on the show and he explained, answer this question, help somebody, tell them why. Because, you know, when you do it in Harris County, they don't offer you probation. So you got to go to jail, okay? So it's just a matter of how much jail you're going to get, because they start negotiating at 15 years on your first offense for aggravated robbery, and you got to do half time.
Right.
So half the battle as a lawyer, after you investigate and realize that they did it, and remember, audience, 90% of our cases are worked out. We don't go to trial on but about 10% of them.
Okay.
We just make the punishment fit the crime. We had to get the right punishment. 15 wasn't right. I made him stay on bond for about 6 months, 9 months, made him finish high school, made him, you know, he married his little girlfriend. He worked where he could work, being on bond, and did day labor. And we got him, I think, 7 or 9 years, something like that. He still has to do 4.5 or half that time. But before he went in, he was humble. He changed his attitude. He wasn't from Houston. He was one of the people from New Orleans, a Katrina guy, but he had a strong support system, family support system. And he came on the show and laid it down why you do it. And a lot of times kids feel like, from him and other clients, that I deserve the money more than the person I'm robbing. And so I need to go buy this, so I'm going to take it because they can get it again. That is a terrible attitude. You don't know what that person has done to get what they have. You take their car, they might be upside down in the car. This is what I explain to my clients. They might have bought it for $15, and the interest is so high, a year later they still owe $15.
Right.
You might jack somebody, you know, for the ATM card. That's all. They might not even be paying their mortgage. You know, people work too hard to barely make ends meet for you to assume that they have something. Another trend was going on with these kids is they were robbing black kids robbing Hispanic guys on Fridays because they feel like they day laborers and they got paid in cash. So they go to their mojo where they mowing or doing construction and rob them and saying, I deserve it more than him.
Right.
Why? He worked for it all
Right.
week. How can you think that way? What is your mindset? Who's taught you that?
Well, sometimes you have to look at the aspect or look at it from a different aspect. Is it a generational curse of did my daddy do that or whatever? And you know, I don't know what to show, but I'm a Christian first and foremost.
Okay.
And you have to get these kids into church. I have to do a better job getting mines in the church. And everybody does, because not even my home church. Where I live at, Fallbrook is the church in my area, and I commend those guys because they do a great job with kids.
Right.
Okay, but I wake up. I'm an early riser, so I was watching Terry Anderson, Lily Grove, and he gave a great message on how a household should be ran.
Right.
And until we can get on that accord with how the Bible say we should be able to do, that's the only way things are going to be able to work.
Right. And Terry Anderson is a big advocate of man, head of household, which is the order it should be.
Right.
But what do you tell all these single mothers when they're trying to struggle, working to make ends meet, can't be home to make sure their children are doing right? Because that's a lot of good mothers who are working hard, trying to provide, are not home, making sure their kids do stuff, and they run off with their friends and just do something wrong on a fluke.
Right.
All of them not bad.
Well,
and so it's unfortunate that we don't have more men in the house, and we don't have enough community for all the single mothers who are working to kind of watch out for each other's kids.
Well, here's the deal. I mean, you can say that all day or whatever. My mom did the best she could with me. I went to go live with my aunt when I got probably into high school. My aunt or whatever was a single, and we had cousins and the whole. And one thing she taught us is about pride. When you walk out of here, you represent this, you represent that. So, you know, a lot of people can use an excuse as a man in the household or whatever, but it's about a sense of pride and who's giving you that illustration. This is what's going to be done. Right. Not anything physical, just verbal. My aunt, I never seen my aunt spank anybody. I think one of my girl cousins might got a spanking one time for making a bed, but it was just that voice. Like, man, I can't do it. I can't let my family down at this point.
Right, and it's good that you had enough heart to care, though, too. So I raised my daughter alone from 3 years old on, and she's 19, and she doesn't like me all the time, but I think she did a good job because I was tough on her. You know, I had expectations that you have to follow.
Exactly.
And I ain't I was never her friend because of that, and I had to put the fear of God in it and jump up in her face every now and then, let her know I wanted her to be most scared of me than the streets.
There you are.
I'm gonna jump up in your face.
There you are.
And I tell the other lawyers, if you see me on the chain and arrested, because I don't whoop Morgan's butt. Okay,
Right.
Didn't say butt.
And I think that's a big
and so
problem.
I had to get in her ass every now and then.
Yeah, but that's a big problem because, especially as a
But she
young
was a good kid. Let me say that. She was
Yeah.
a good kid, but I had to make sure when she tried me that.
Right, but as a young parent, sometimes we get so caught up into trying to give our kids so much what we didn't have, and to a certain degree, there's nothing wrong with that in my eyes because I spoil mine. But sometimes we do. You're too much of my friend and my buddy because I'm trying to not lose you and be cool with you or whatever instead of listen.
I'm getting a wrap up thing. So what do you want to say? Let's say this is what I want to say. Thank you, Cedric, for giving your time to come and educate the community about what a bail bond is and how the business prospect works. And on my YouTube, we're going to be having this up probably in about a week. And you can always go to youtube.com/user/Vivian R. King if you need to hear this again. And I'm sure Ced will put it on his website or his Facebook because everybody needs to understand what a bail bond is. And that was his purpose tonight. And I just want to tell you, thank you very much for sacrificing your time tonight.
Absolutely.
To come educate the community.
Thank you for having me.
All right, that's a wrap. Thank you. And please watch Vivian King, Truth and Justice with Vivian King next Wednesday. Thank you for tuning in again. Tonight we have something really good, a hot topic in the news this week. He's been charged with crime. This is a show where I try to educate real stories.